Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
Let me ask you something, and this is a question I've wanted to ask you for a while, and I've always restrained myself.
Yeah.
A Christmas special came out that was produced by George Lucas, in which all of the participants in Star Wars came together and they made this Star Wars Christmas special, and the tape's been passed around for years, and the rumor is that Lucas is trying to suppress it.
It all started in 1978 when I let people make a Star Wars TV special without me.
The holiday special, I remember.
It came out so bad! I hate it! I hate it! I hate it! I hate it!
George.
After all these years, Lucasfilm is still saying, Margaret, we shouldn't talk about that.
Do you remember making this Christmas special? No, you don't remember it?
Nobody is allowed to mention this.
It is so bad, it's not good.
You are about to see the worst half hour of television ever.
Star Wars. Star Wars is going to be on TV, and it's a new thing?
Oh, I see.
It's the Star Wars Holiday Special.
We popped it in, and my life was never the same.
Come on, Mala, let's see a little smile.
It will provide many years of fun.
I felt a great disturbance in the Force.
We rolled a dube and sat back and watched it, and we thought it was fabulous.
I fear something terrible has happened.
To explain the Star Wars Holiday Special is like trying to explain to someone how the pyramids were built. It's kind of impossible. All you have to know is it was the 70s. There might have been some cocaine.
Happy Life Day.
I saw it as a kid. I thought it was great.
They didn't tell the people this was not Star Wars the movie 2.
Say that again.
Seems we've landed on some sort of comedy variety show planet.
The Star Wars Holiday Special is sort of like the Holy Grail.
It's completely mental.
So funny and so stupid.
I love the Holiday Special.
The Holiday Special is definitely canon.
You probably wouldn't think that Maude would be one of the guest stars.
And I was never into the whole Star Wars thing.
I love all of the awkwardness.
I am your fantasy. Experience me.
The whole production was fraught with problems.
The ship you seek. Follow me, friend.
That Boba Fett cartoon rules.
Settle down.
The Star Wars special sucked so bad, I was amazed that I wasn't in it.
I would really like to know what CBS was thinking when they greenlit this thing.
But now, let's get started, shall we?
There are always better stories about failure than success. It's much more interesting. It's much more compelling, and it's much more human.
Supposedly a TV movie existed, and no one knew where they could get it. I had never seen it. You couldn't convince me it was true. To me, it was all urban legend.
But now that I was a ninth grade man, I wanted something you couldn't find in any store.
Yo, Golner, come here.
It was like finding this artifact of something that I was such a fan of, but I had no conception ever existed.
Yeah, and for a while, I believed that it was impossible to get.
It became a currency of sorts in geek culture, you know, talking about it, dropping references to it, producing a copy to watch.
Christmas came early. He had a bootleg copy of the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Holy Kenobi, the legend is true.
I had to get like a tape of a tape of a tape, you know. The Zapruder film was easier to watch than the copy of the Holiday Special that I got.
On the back cover, it said, if I had a hammer and time, I would destroy every copy of the Star Wars Holiday Special, George Lucas. And I was like, sold.
That was so cool.
Were we watching two different things?
You don't know Star Wars. This special is really for the true fans.
So the true fan wants to watch Dorothy from the Golden Girls flirt with an alien.
We have seen something that we weren't supposed to see. Clearly, something had gone wrong.
You were in the area because you were in Hollywood making a Star Wars special that would play around Thanksgiving.
Got all the characters from Star Wars, and it's got quite a few extra people as well. For one thing, you meet the whole Wookiee family.
And the Wookiees lived up in the treehouse, and that's where we met Chewbacca's family. Itchy, the little kid, and what was her name? Jawa?
Itchy is the grandfather.
Itchy's the grandfather. Who's that? Oh, Lumpy's the kid. I'm so sorry. It's only been 40 years.
Chewie's family had to be named something.
Lumpy and Itchy? Couldn't they have spent 15 more seconds on the names?
And we meet Chewie's family, and we realize that, oh, they're just gonna all chew it, not talk. And so you're literally watching a bunch of mimes.
But you just have zero dialogue. Zero dialogue up until this point for 15 minutes. Like, have you time to? I would love to know that stat. How much of the Star Wars Holiday Special has absolutely no discernible dialogue?
R2, look. It's Chewbacca's family.
Let's never speak of this again.
So you didn't love it. Who cares?
I care. I love Star Wars. It's my life. It makes no sense why I didn't love this too.
You know, we spent years of 2 weeks at a time working directly with George, developing what would become this animated series. And we had access to the theater downstairs. And we made a date, all the writers, hey, we're gonna watch the holiday special. And you tap out anytime you want. Like, we're gonna see who can make it all the way through. And that's what we did. And like one by one, like flies, people were like, I'm out.
I like to watch bad stuff, but that's a hard watch making it through the holiday special.
The cockpit of the Millennium Falcon is clearly just a cardboard cutout, and everything just, it takes you a while to realize that everything's wrong.
When you first see the Star Wars Holiday Special in its entirety, you're like, how did this happen? Who decided to create one of the most confounding pieces of Star Wars entertainment in the history of its existence?
In order to understand how the holiday special happened, you have to put it in context.
Star Wars pioneered a whole different kind of almost grassroots attention.
The real secret to the success of Star Wars was a guy named Charlie Lippincott, who pioneered an entirely new way of marketing movies.
Oh, Charlie was a good guy. He had kind of an oddball sense of humor. You know, he went to film school at USC.
I don't remember Charlie ever making any movies, but Charlie was involved with all of the filmmakers and keeping track of everyone. He was like a den mother. But when I learned shortly thereafter that Charlie was becoming a publicist, it made perfect sense to me.
We're talking with Charlie Lippincott, who is associated with the production. Charlie, could you tell us exactly how are you associated?
I'm the executive in charge of advertising, publicity, promotion, and merchandising for Star Wars Corporation.
Charlie had come up with the idea of marketing Star Wars directly to fans because there really wasn't a good hook for marketing Star Wars. Science fiction wasn't popular. None of the actors were big names that you could get booked on The Tonight Show.
A year before Star Wars came out, Charlie went and showed slides about this movie and got this amazing groundswell. Fandom was never really a part of the marketing plan until Charlie Lippincott made it so.
Even though he didn't have footage to show them, he would show them like Ralph McQuarrie's artwork. He would tell them the story of what the film was about.
He went to the Star Trek conventions and got the Trekkies interested in it. And this is something right up their alley. The idea is if you get the enthusiasm with them, that will spread. These are the kind of people that will see a movie 10 times if they like it.
I'd like to introduce you now to producer Gary Kurtz. And the star of the film, Mark Hamill, plays Luke Skywalker.
He knew how to get people excited and how to stir up interest and word of mouth. And from these science fiction conventions, people left being interested to see what this film was going to be like. And then they would tell their friends about it.
Ballantine Books was one of the major houses in paperbacks, major publisher in science fiction. Charlie went to them and made a deal to do a novelization of Star Wars and have it come out like 9 months before the movie came out to get it out there. And then Charlie made a deal with Marvel Comics to do the comic bookization of Star Wars.
And the real problem, I think, in some ways, was I didn't want one comic book, and I didn't want two comic books. I wanted 5 to 6 comic books telling the story of the film. So that was a bit of a hard sell at first. And I wanted at least 3 issues out before the film came out. And nobody had done that up to that time.
Basically, everything with Star Wars that wasn't making the movie was Charlie.
He taught Hollywood a very important lesson that they are still learning from today.
9 months after Charlie started these fan promotions, the movie comes out.
To the world-famous Chinese theater come the stars of the biggest box office success in motion picture history.
Star Wars. It is more than just a successful movie, it is a box office phenomenon. The film is breaking attendance records all over the country. Not since Jaws have so many people stood in line to see a movie.
It was kind of like a nuclear explosion had gone off in pop culture. It blew people's minds. I mean, I remember people waiting in line all day to see this movie.
Star Wars became the new box office champion by providing pure 100% escapist entertainment. And it appears this is what just about everybody in the country is in the mood for.
You know, this was world-changing.
It's like the Beatles.
I mean, we'd all seen science fiction movies before, but not like this.
It only opened in America at the end of May, but already it's the biggest box office hit in cinema history. The overwhelming success of the picture surprised everybody. As one Fox executive put it, it's not so much a film, it's more an industry.
I love the world between Star Wars and Empire. The world between Star Wars and Empire, to me, is this bizarre, it's not completely thought out. There's no mythology built up.
For the fans, it's interesting in many ways. One of the ways, it gives them an insight into this very brief period where things were not set up yet. And it was kind of like Lucasfilm 1.5. 1.0 is over, but 2.0 wasn't there yet.
And it wasn't until Empire Forward that everything became more fully formed. So I have a real affection for that time where it was this wild thing that nobody could figure out.
So somewhere in the summer after Star Wars has come out, George takes a meeting with Frank Wells of Warner Brothers, with Gary Kurtz and Charlie Lippincott. The goal of that meeting was to re-release THX to try and piggyback on the success of Star Wars. Somewhere along the line in that meeting, Frank said something to George to the effect of, "Come September, you guys will be nothing."
And George left really angry. And so it kind of redoubled George's interest in making sure Star Wars succeeded and continued to be in theaters.
To promote Star Wars, getting the stars of Star Wars to appear on all of these talk and variety shows, Donnie and Marie, or any of these other places, the Star Wars Holiday Special may well have been created out of spite.
Darth Vader's Raiders, and we can't believe the things that you do. We never met a troop who played hide and
My brothers were dressed as the stormtroopers dancing. I'm Luke, and Marie's Leia with the bagels on the side of her head. Han Solo, played by Chris Christopherson, and I'm dancing around R2-D2, and there's C-3PO, and we're talking, and Chewbacca's there, and I'm thinking this is probably one of the coolest finales we've ever done.
His transistors are in trouble and his tubes are weak.
And if we stay, our chances for survival are bleak. So show us the way to get out of this world, for that's where everything is.
I'm thinking, how in the world is George Lucas allowing this to happen? Because that's just so far from the movie. But it sure was funny at the time, and it's funny to look back right now.
Push a few buttons, light the fire. Gonna take it higher.
We broke a lot of rules when we had the Star Wars characters on the Donnie Marie show for that finale. There was a shot with Chewbacca with his arm around Darth Vader. Oof, how does that happen? But on Donnie Marie, I guess everybody was friends.
Come back to me. Come back to me. Come back to me.
Star Wars Holiday Special is Citizen Kane compared to that Donnie Marie thing. I mean, that's truly train wreck sort of television.
You intergalactic fool.
You'll never get them back that way.
I suppose you have a better plan.
No plan at all. Just a little force.
You can't imagine that happening in 1981. Like that, Star Wars couldn't have gone near a show like that in 81. But in 77, everyone's going, I don't know what this is or how big it's going to be, but yeah, take it, go, put it on a T-shirt or whatever. Put it in your show. Do a dance with the Stormtroopers.
I think that's one of the coolest moments my brothers ever had in show business was transforming stormtroopers to vaudevillian dancers. That's so funny.
So the public appearances helped the ticket sales in the theaters.
They had the entire family watching the Donnie and Marie show. George wanted to tap into that magic. We had the demographics that he wanted. And through research, he was right. And that Donnie and Marie show aired, and everybody saw Star Wars characters on Donnie and Marie, they went back to the theater.
It's almost as if at that time in the entertainment world, there were like 2 tracks. It was like for entertainment. And it had been going on since the silent movies where you did your kind of high art form, which was the movie, and then you did a lot of stuff to support it, whatever it took. If you had to put on the disguise in front of a shopping mall, you did it. And they did it for Star Wars.
George was about to start shooting The Empire Strikes Back, and he was concerned that there be momentum, that there be a stirring the pot to make sure people were aware of the franchise.
And you saw the proliferation of Star Wars on television in the late 1970s and 1977, specifically on these variety shows, as a way to keep Star Wars cemented in the zeitgeist.
Prior to that, the big movie was Jaws, right? But you couldn't just throw Jaws onto a thing. Like, ladies and gentlemen, Jaws is here to sing.
In retrospect, I think it's exceptionally foolish because the brand was not going to die. It was very, very popular. Somebody somewhere said, you know, if we don't give them something, they're going to forget about us.
And suddenly it's everywhere on TV after that. Like just the promotion was everywhere you looked.
Let's crank out as much stuff as we can. Let's let Richard Pryor have all the alien makeup for a Cantina sketch on his show. That sketch actually kind of works. It's Richard Pryor in that world, and he's using it to ding riffs on race and social class and stuff like that.
Hey, why don't you watch where you're going? You got the biggest eyes in the place.
Also, these characters weren't embedded in our consciousness the way they are now. We'd met them once in one film. It's not like we'd gone on, you know, a 9-film adventure with R2-D2 and we know the parameters of R2-D2 or how he would speak, or C-3PO.
Hello, welcome to Burger Show.
We'd like a Star Wars poster, please.
Or even Darth Vader.
With guest appearances by Darth Vader. Humongous.
We'd seen them once in that film, and that was the only voice we knew. So the fact that Darth Vader was being lampooned, or that the droids were doing things out of context, or even Mark Hamill was doing something in a different way.
Bob Hope's All-Star Christmas Comedy Special, starring special guest star Mark Hamill.
It's more egregious now looking back than it was, I think, at the time. It was a very normal way of getting it out there. And Star Wars embraced that opportunity.
It's Luke Skywalker. Did you bring the Force?
You better believe it. The Los Angeles Police Force.
How did you find them?
Now you're all under arrest for malicious mutilation of a marvelous movie.
I should have stuck to looking for Mr. Goodbar.
Any kind of artwork out of context is going to look funny. Any kind of artwork. Any kind, period. If you don't know the history and the context, you cannot appreciate it fully.
This was in the days of crazy specials, you know. Wayne Newton at SeaWorld. Wayne, meet Shamu. Kids, let's do a show.
From Orlando, Florida, it's Wayne Newton at SeaWorld. And special guest appearance by Shamu the Killer Whale.
Hello, King Kong. Meaner than a junkyard dog. When 70s TV was bad,
There was no description for it.
I mean, it's corny and it's stupid. That's kind of what it was.
Everybody had a variety show. Howard Cosell had a variety show.
You know what's going to make this show work? Yours truly, the born superstar.
Didn't Shields and Yarnell have a show? They were mimes, and they did something on Donnie and Marie, and it was popular, so they went, well, give them a show. Let's see if it works. At least 70s television was way more in touch with, hey, no one knows anything. Oh, didn't work. Well, we tried. Like, they don't know. They don't know.
It became a way to bring the family together in front of the television set without fully satisfying any one member of that family.
It was disposable television. People are going to see this once, and that's it.
Variety shows did not repeat well. They look arcane today.
The funny thing is, if you think the Star Wars Holiday Special is bad or the worst thing that ever aired on TV, you never saw The Lawrence Welk Show.
And that calls for a little soul music.
You never saw the Paul Lynde Halloween special.
Move it in, move it out, move it in and about, disco baby.
You never saw the Brady Bunch variety show.
There's a new kind of dancing. It's gonna be the rage. You just move yourself behind like an actor on a stage.
Brady Bunch Variety Hour and the Paul Lynde Halloween special, those stand out because they are so bad. But there are other ones that are forgotten just because they weren't even memorably bad.
There are astronomically worse shows that aired around this time. They just didn't carry the name Star Wars.
The Star Wars Holiday Special happened, again, for multiple reasons. CBS approached Lucasfilm wanting to do it.
We talked to George at one point about how this happened. You don't like this piece of content. How does anything that you don't like or you didn't approve of get through? He's like, it's not that I didn't approve of it. There was so much pressure in between Star Wars and Empire. The way that executives thought about the audience is that everyone would just forget Star Wars was a thing. The audience, they just can't be dependent upon. So you gotta make some other kind of short-term Star Wars content. What kind of TV show can you make on the kind of budget it takes to make Star Wars? And they're like, holiday special.
And this was a way, a TV special to get mass exposure, to get more excitement until Empire comes back, and certainly would help the toys.
Star Wars, the toys came later on. They were ill-prepared for how successful the movie was going to be.
Because there was no such thing as merchandising on movies. Some TV stuff, but not movies. Their lifespan is just too short.
Back then, by the time you would get a toy line out, it would be 12 months to 18 months after the movie already left theaters, and nobody would remember the movie, so nobody was willing to take that risk.
The official Kenner Star Wars models are still in production in the Orient and won't be ready for several months.
First Christmas, every kid in America wants a Star Wars toy, but they had nothing to sell for Christmas. And so what they did was they sold you a coupon that you would send in, and once the toys had been made, they would ship you a set.
But in 1978, the toys were everywhere. And this was the first Christmas where you could get Star Wars toys, Star Wars everything, and a key component of marketing that was the Star Wars Holiday Special.
May the Force be with you and your children.
Our agent called and said that there's a Star Wars Holiday Special. And we got really excited because we thought this was going to be our annuity, that this holiday show would run every year for an eternity. The Charlie Brown Christmas, the Grinch That Stole Christmas, I mean, all of these things that'll be one forever. As it turned out, it was only one viewing.
So the people who wrote the special, and there were a bunch of them, were not science fiction people. They weren't Star Wars fans. I don't know if they all had even seen Star Wars. They were people who wrote variety. And that's what this show was. It just happened to be themed to Star Wars.
I mean, you have to remember, we were comedy writers. And to get into something like this was really thrilling.
And I said, where do I sign? And it was It was fun from the beginning. And the first day, it was the staff, Lenny Rips and Pat Proft. They were there, and Ken and Mitzi Welch, who were writers from the Carol Burnett Show, who did all the big musical things, and George Lucas, and Gary Smith and Dwight Hemian, who were actually allegedly producing it, but they didn't really produce it in the end. When I was looking at the credits on the show and I saw that they had it was a Smith-Hemian, because I don't remember them being there, but they were at the beginning when I thought about it.
And the other thing was we worked with his director, a guy named David Akamba, who was a director of rock and roll videos. He made a successful rock and roll documentary. There was that USC connection. David was the voice of George. If David had an idea or we wanted to run something by him or there were questions, our assumption was that it's also what George wanted.
My intent was to see what George wanted and try and make it happen. But quickly there were, Ken and Mitzi were assigned to the show, whom I didn't know, and then when I found out what they did, but they wrote the music for the singing numbers in that. I just thought that was one of the worst parts of the show when she started singing and all those kinds of the fake Broadway show, forgettable show tunes. The wrong people to be assigned to work with me or vice versa.
The film industry and the variety television industry are completely two separate animals.
I hear that David did not get along with the Welches, and I didn't realize that because I wasn't in the room with them when that was happening. But that was the team.
What's so unique about the Star Wars Holiday Special is not just that they have the costumes and the permission to use everything that we know of Star Wars, but they actually got the cast of Star Wars.
When I read it, I said, this is awful. Why are we doing this? I said, I'm not doing this.
It was in my contract. There was no known way to get out of it.
Oh, right. But I'm not singing.
They all slum it for a TV special. Again, I have to imagine the paychecks made it worth it.
The talent was supposed to be the caliber of Cher, Baryshnikov, and Anne Margaret. That was the people that they had hoped would be on the variety show.
I didn't think it was going to be so much of a traditional variety show. It never occurred to me that Harvey Korman and B. Arthur and Art Carney were going to be in it.
Yes, they were TV stars, but they were the elderly audience, CBS audience TV stars.
It always occurred to me as something that was put together by old TV. What is this? Star what? Whatever. Where's Captain Kirk? Bring in, who we need? Art Carney. He's a TV legend.
You felt like they could have had cooler, hipper people that they would have brought in to do these various parts.
Ken and Mitzi were old school, and they were used to doing it a certain way, and David wasn't crazy about that.
So there's an interesting rumor about the Star Wars Holiday Special, which I've always found fascinating, which is that David Akamba was scouring improv clubs looking for great acts that could appear in the special and came across Robin Williams. This was after he'd already been Mork on Happy Days, but before he had gotten Mork and Mindy on the air. And he brought Robin to the Welches, who immediately turned him away and said, we're only looking for name talent. About a month later, Mork and Mindy airs, and Robin Williams explodes and could have been a part of what made the Star Wars Holiday Special fantastic.
They weren't on the same wavelength, and David felt that he was on George's wavelength and that they weren't. And they were there because there had to be professionals who had done this kind of thing before, who knew what the requirements were.
And George came up with the original story. It was going to be a 1-hour special.
Now, the Star Wars Holiday Special that we know didn't start off the way that we experienced it. It actually started off, I think, from a much purer place, which is George Lucas trying to write a variety holiday special, or at least just a holiday special.
So after Ralph McQuarrie passed in 2012, they discovered in his archive a 5-page treatment for the Star Wars Holiday Special. And it's debated as to who actually wrote this treatment. And when reading it, it does feel decidedly Lucas. And when you look at those old Ralph McQuarrie concept pieces, it makes sense that George would have floated this 5-page treatment to his key collaborator on A New Hope.
When you read through the treatment, George Lucas has a Jules Verne quality. He sees the future, whether it is an iPad or virtual reality, this idea of this kind of walking through a teleporter and being able to be in a different spot. But then there are other things that are so decidedly weird, like Raquel Welch? Guest star Raquel Welch volunteers for the job and leaves to intercept the starship. So Raquel is playing a starship officer, which is already odd because most Imperial officers are British, and she's going to infiltrate the Starship Musica to stop the Life Day celebration. Raquel, under the guise of telling Lumpy a story with dance and gestures about what drives a spaceship, dances her way into the power supply room and screws everything up. This idea that Raquel Welch is doing some performance art, Avon Ailey kind of, she's describing how a spaceship works through dance? There's a lot of questions to be had here. Look, who am I to judge? But in reading this, it feels like, hey, a nerdy guy who has maybe a crush on Raquel Welch. He's like, maybe I get to meet her. Maybe she'd be impressed by me. Maybe we'll hit it off. We'll go get a sandwich. Nothing weird.
We spent one full 12-hour day working with George Lucas. And that was worth everything. I mean, he was the most intense, most focused person I had ever met. I mean, we were so into it that I forgot about lunch, and that's infrequent for me. Then he told us the mythology of the story. There was this Life Day.
I know your family's waiting.
I know it's an important day.
All right, we'll give it a try.
The story was Luke and Leia and Han Solo were accompanying Chewbacca home to his home planet for Life Day, which was a holiday George invented. And he thought it would be like later Festivus for the rest of us from Seinfeld would be, but not so much. Never happened.
It was kind of a Wookiee Rosh Hashanah, you know? I mean, it was the biggest day of the year.
The whole Life Day with the Wookiees was something that George took very seriously at the time. And then also sort of expand the Star Wars universe in this first major visual expansion. George didn't choose the storyline lightly.
They wanted Chewbacca's family to have exposure, to show them as a loving family of creatures.
And to George Lucas, this was real. I mean, you have to remember, he had come up with at least a dozen stories. So he knew what this was about.
George met with the writers on the special and actually showed them a large binder, a Bible of sorts for the universe, where we got to know a lot more about the characters that we didn't know at the time.
He was kind of like a reporter, sharing with us a world that we didn't know.
Obviously, we were going to get to know a lot about Chewbacca's home life on Kashyyyk, but there's rumor that we were even potentially going to learn more about Han Solo.
You're like family to me.
He said that Han Solo was married to a Wookiee, but we can't say that because people wouldn't accept it.
Family to me.
That Wookiee looked at you with lust. That was...
Real affection. No, Han was never married to a... That's not true. That's impossible.
Okay. Most of our work was with the Chewbacca stuff, not the variety stuff. The variety parts we left blank.
And originally the special was going to be a 1-hour special, which was typical for those variety specials that the networks did. But as Star Wars was more and more successful, CBS got more and more excited and came back and said, can we do a 90-minute special? Can we do a 2-hour special?
Then I found out what it actually was going to be once we went to work. And so did George, and I think he was stunned.
You know, I mean, we were pretty clear that it was wonderful to spend a day with Lucas, but we knew that we were not going to spend any more time with him. You know, I mean, he had much bigger fish to fry.
George had detached himself I don't think he ever envisioned a show with guest stars and numbers.
Once again, we weren't creating the material. They were. We just sort of approved it. And then George got busy with pre-production on The Empire Strikes Back, so he got less and less involved with the holiday special.
Smith Hemian were the top. They had 92 Emmys, and they were famous for doing really classy shows.
And Smith Hemian, who the previous year had just done the iconic David Bowie Bing Crosby Christmas special, which endures to this day, was put in charge of the Star Wars Holiday Special.
This was not really in their wheelhouse.
The first day I went to the set, and nobody was paying attention to David Akumba because he was kind of bouncing off the walls a little bit.
It was a mixture of worlds, and David's approach was to try to do it documentary, kind of one camera, even shaky camera kind of thing. And the production company really wanted it to be multiple camera more often because you could just get more done.
This is not, everything was taking forever.
And I remember the beginning of the Star Wars show was just absolutely brutal. The hours were ridiculous.
But now, let's get started, shall we?
And Harvey Korman is working his butt off, but oh boy, does he know what he's doing is not good.
And Harvey would wear anything I put on him, and he did like to get into drag.
He also dressed up as Julia Child and did a bit as her.
A bit of the calorantrum root. Wonderful, just adds that touch of piquancy.
I mean, Harvey has a character called Mother Marcus on the Carol Burnett show, a big Jewish mama with big boobs and really funny. And this is not that far from that character.
Consistency, don't we? So, and on the count of one. Stir, whip, 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 stir. Stir, whip, whip, stir.
Sometimes when I'm cooking, that does come to mind. Stir, whip, stir, whip.
Coming along. Very nice.
Okay, Harvey Korman is in a purple dress with silver hair and 4 arms, and that's still not the most weird thing that's happening in this film.
Harvey Korman is trying to pick up B. Arthur, which is very disturbing.
What'll it be? Hello, Acmina. Come back soon. I'll be waiting.
And to somehow make the scene weirder, he has like a hole in his head that he pours the drinks into.
I don't remember it. I just absolutely eliminated it from my mind. It was too bizarre. It was too otherworldly. I couldn't remember it. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't recognize myself. The only thing I remember out of it was the fun of working with B. Arthur. I mean, we had fun, but I don't know what the hell that thing was about.
Some things are so contradictory to the film that just came out and established it. Like, so is this that Cantina? Because it's all the same costumes and characters. It's not at all dangerous, right? Like, that is the purpose it serves in the film. This is the most dangerous place where arms are cut off, people are shot under tables, and occasionally Beatrice Arthur will break out into song.
Bea wanted to sing the Alabama song. She wanted to do a number. That was her proviso. They finally, I think, went to the Brecht estate, which was not interested in having the song done on the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Oh, and you know who was in it? Harvey Korman and I were in a bar with aliens and strange-looking people, and it's a lovely piece written by Mitzi and Ken Welch.
So Ken and Mitzi wrote a song for Bea that was a lot like "Those Were the Days, My Friend, We Thought They'd Never," which was like an up version of "Oh, Show Me the Way to the Next Whiskey Bar," and that's what Bea winds up singing on the show.
Then homeward bound, friend, don't forget me in your dreams.
It's the Cantina music slowed down, but it's so funny because none of us had lyrics to that. And then this happens, and then kids are starting to like sing it on the playground and stuff.
I was hired as a Wookiee, but I remember when I showed up, they had plenty of Wookiees, and they were looking for someone that could dance. So the choreographer said, we're just going to pop you in here. You're going to be Walrus Man from now on. And I became Walrus Man, and I got to dance with B. Arthur. I think part of the issue for that day was the fact that there were so many people being fitted into costumes. That took hours.
I mean, the B. Arthur thing took forever, too. But that was because the aliens kept fainting.
Those costumes were pretty hot, pretty unbearable.
There was no oxygen in these costumes. You could not breathe in these costumes. And this went on for hours and hours and hours.
Because it was like 103 degrees on the set. And, you know, you put those heads on, and it's kind of like waterboarding.
I think had we not stepped in, the actors...
We would have killed them.
David had no sense of
the fact that they were suffocating.
Of their needs as human beings.
My eyes were supposed to be here, but I'm looking through two little holes. I can't see out of the holes. It's like, okay. And then I have to find, and I don't have hands. I have hooves. So it was just kind of like, here, you go grab her. I felt my way down, and I just kind of grabbed her wrists as best I could, and I just started doing this with her. Kind of like L'Chaim to life, like from Fiddler on the Roof, you know, that's kind of that two-step dance. So swaying back and forth to the music with B. Arthur.
One part, it looks like B. Arthur is having an affair with a giant rat.
Just one more drop, friend, before we stop, friend.
And interestingly enough, the gigantic rat was saying, "Oh my God, get B. Arthur off me!"
And there's that scene where B. Arthur is like nuzzling a rat. Rick Baker actually used that on another project.
And it was from a film he'd done 2 years ago, Food of the Gods. Which is insane.
So we got a lot of remainder aliens that kind of had, you know, mill flaws. So they looked fairly cheesy. So the idea was don't go too close on any of them.
I never gave it much thought once we finished with it. But even to this day, I get pictures that fans send, you know, of me in the costume and everything, and please autograph it.
I don't remember how long we went. I just remember doing another take and then another take and another take.
I'm not surprised if I was there for 24 hours.
Is that a tear, friend, in your eye?
And it wasn't even that good. Like once you saw it, you went, wow, you know, they could have done that in an hour or 2 hours.
Now it's good night, friend.
What?
I'm Bob Mackey. Welcome aboard, Mr. Mackey. I'm Captain Stubing. It's an honor to meet you. Thank you, Captain. Mr. Mackey designs the gowns for all the big TV stars. Carol Burnett, Anne Margaret, Cher.
That's right. You've heard them say clothes make the man. Well, I'm the man that makes the clothes.
Well, I had heard enough people enthusiastic about the Star Wars Christmas special. And someone said, and they were talking about it. And I said, oh, I designed that. You did? Oh, really? You know, it was like that, you know, and I just went, oh, okay. Well, I guess it was more important than I thought it was.
When we walked in, they had big drawings of the costumes, and we saw the ones that we would be wearing. It was fantastic. And Bob Mackey was there, and we had to do fittings, and Bob Mackey was there. I was thrilled.
We had the acrobats and the gymnasts and all that whole group of circus people, which I love doing.
So that was going to be our role. We would be tumbling inside this little music box to entertain the baby Chewbacca Jr. I don't know what his name is. Sorry. It is very similar to a scene my father did in a movie many years prior to that, Thief of Baghdad. So in that one, Pop was inside. He was miniature inside a little music box.
And then I have to have their heads cut off. Oh.
And in this particular movie, we were going to be on a table, like a flat surface. And we were more like holograms.
I wanted to do them in bright colors because everything in that film was like a neutral color. You know, it's all grays and taupes and browns and beiges and a little black and a little, you know, but basically no color really. I guess in space they don't have color. This is the girl, the gymnast girl, and it's a whole bodysuit. So anytime they moved, the elastic would move with them and it would stay in place.
And then the 5 of us were in hot pink and black. So it took a little getting used to for tumbling in and doing pyramids, climbing up, because I was the top man person. So climbing up and so they wouldn't get in your way.
So we had 2 jugglers and they were in the spandex as well.
What better testament to the mastery of John Williams than whoever scored this entire holiday special? Because somebody came in with a new Casio like synth sound and they're like, you gotta let me flex this out, you guys. I'm telling you, it's gonna be timeless.
This was the first sketch I did and I wanted to have this kind of Asian half man, half bird kind of situation. And he's still a warrior. They're all like warriors of a certain kind. He had this big tail that he could whip around like a whip, but it was attached. And he had all these pheasant feathers that were dyed this green color.
Dance, slave, dance.
It was comfortable, but only problem was in bathroom.
Yeah, every once in a while, someone will pop up and they'll want us to, oh, I bought all the costumes. And
one of the things I love to collect are when I have costume sketches of an actual costume I own. So this is the only costume I own from the holiday special. And this is very exciting too, that like when I saw the things in the Julian's auction, I was like, that is one I definitely have to win.
It's been over 40 years. There's people are still watching it online. Like it just, yeah, it's people still talk about it.
Jefferson Starship had this song that was a deep cut. It was the last song on one of their albums called Hyperdrive. Almost as if a producer looked at a list of artists that were popular and then called someone and said, Hyperdrive, we have Hyperdrive. We call up this Jefferson Starship. We have starships. It's as if it wrote itself.
Yeah, so we recorded this song, Light the Sky and Fire, with Marty Balin singing, and he was the main singer because Grace was in rehab. So we went ahead and ended up on the Star Wars Christmas holiday special. It was Christmas special, we called it at the time. And none of us really knew what was going on, but we ended up playing there.
So when I found out that Jefferson Starship was going to be part of the shoot, we were actually going to shoot a number with them. So I thought, oh, this is going to be really cool.
We had a connection, not really. I mean, I didn't know a lot about what was going on. I remember we were rehearsing Paul's and Grace's house over in San Francisco, overlooking the bay, this beautiful house. And Darth Vader came by, you know, it was like a publicity thing. Came by and took some photographs, and we got some photographs of us hanging out with Darth Vader. So we had some relationship already. I mean, of course, I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I figured they had their stuff together, you know.
It's really bizarre. It's really bad special effects. But you know what? A lot of reviewers in 1978 praised this. They thought the special effects in this thing were the highlight of the show. Looking back on it now, this can't be a highlight.
It was a trip. I remember a little bit about it. I mean, I remember they let us loose in a room full of props, like a costume room kind of thing. They said just try and make up an outfit. No direction really, just individually make up anything you want. And it just, as long as it looks like it's from another galaxy or something, or from the future.
I think the finished product didn't really come out as if it was a music video as much as they thought it might.
I guess Art Carney is sort of there interacting in with his wry humor with I guess one of the Stormtrooper guys, right, sitting there in front of this futuristic device.
Will you get on with it?
Okay. And they press a button, and then we start. We suddenly, there we are, playing our song, Light the Sky and Fire, with all these weird, cheesy effects all around. And we're all sort of
looking like we're from another galaxy, supposedly, but we really probably didn't. We looked pretty silly. We didn't really know how they were going to use it. I'm not even certain they knew how they were going to use it.
So eventually we started just running behind on that schedule. And the more we ran behind, the more the people who are in the production side of things with the money got a little bit nervous.
And I remember that we shot considerable amount of the entire show budget the first 3 days of the production because we were into overtime so much.
And the network freaked out because they said, this guy is going to go over schedule, over budget, and then we're going to have to edit this thing and we won't have what we need and all that. And it went on to the point where they said, we have to get rid of him. We have to lose him.
One of the reasons why I left was that it just was not working, you know, and it was very confusing because so many people had their fingers in the pie. And I'm not sure if George understood just what the difference was between film and television in the U.S. because I don't think he ever worked in television.
I don't think George realized that he picked the wrong format in which to do these stories. That wouldn't happen today, but then, 40 years ago, this was the style, and so it was executed by people who did these things all the time. But I felt sorry for David because he, kind of went back with partially with his tail tucked between his legs, but partially with the time-honored Hollywood. They don't know what they're doing. No wonder everything is such crap when it comes out of Hollywood. I'm going back to Toronto. And he went back and did some beautiful stuff.
I don't want to answer any more questions about the show. Okay, it's just that simple. You guys go ahead and do whatever you want. You do whatever you want to do with all the people you get and all that. But I'm not interested in contributing to the story at all.
At that point, given the amount of overtime that they were creating and how expensive that was all becoming for the production company, and something very unusual happened is that it hit the brakes and we came to a complete stop.
When David left, there were problems because directors don't leave when things are going well.
So they were scrambling.
But we were out of it at that point. I mean, Ken and Mitzi apparently were on the set every day working with the show all day.
They put an emergency call into Steve Binder, who was a terrific variety show director who had done the Elvis comeback specials and a lot of other stuff, and who knew how to direct a variety show in the conventional way.
So when Gary phoned me at home, and I said, what's going on? And he said, well, the truth of the matter is we started a 2-hour primetime special for CBS. We're way over budget, and there's a decision being made right now whether to continue making the special or shutting it down permanently.
He was replaced by Steve Binder, who was really a top-notch guy who knew what he was doing.
He brought a sense of control that was missing from the production, I think, which helped get things back on track.
Budget was $1 million. I don't think that Steve had the opportunity to really make very many changes. The way I saw it for him, it was pretty much triage.
It's long been said that George had always wanted to do a story that focused specifically on the Wookiee home planet. I can't tell you why that's something that he wanted to see on screen.
The origins of this concept of a Wookiee family can be traced back to Lucas. I know there's audio 1976 in a brainstorming session between Alan Dean Foster, George Lucas, and Charlie Lippincott, which was recorded.
I had an idea. As a joke, which usually ends up being my best ideas, I don't know whether we dare try it. I thought of doing it in the movie, actually, and then I chickened out. But I was thinking of how to start the film, and there's a Wookiee family, Mama Wookiee, Papa Wookiee, and Baby Wookiee. What do you think of something like that?
But obviously, he didn't go and do that as a sequel concept, but that idea remained in his head, and it seems like it was the seed for the holiday special, which he then revisited several years later.
There was no way it could be done. It featured the Wookiees. They were the stars of the story, and the Wookiees speak no known language. This was in the era when they wouldn't put subtitles on television because they figured most of America would not read them.
There's a terrific YouTube thing where someone has gone in and added their own subtitles.
Had we been able to use subtitles, it would have been a lot easier because we could have had the Wookiees interacting more. But we didn't. Instead, we had to have people translating from the Wookiee to English, which was an opening for a lot of guest stars. CBS liked that.
I suspect Art Carney didn't really know what Star Wars was.
Oh, my favorite Wookiees today. Why all the long, hairy faces?
Art Carney understood the Wookiee language, and he could translate so the audience would understand what they were talking about.
Officer, maybe I could be of some help.
I found in Art Carney's trailer, he filled the shower with ice, and then he had bottles of different kinds of alcohol in the bottom of the trailer.
So when I met Art, he was pleasant enough, but I learned soon that I had to shoot all of his scenes early in the day. That, you know, wherever he went to eat lunch, he may have had a little bit too much to drink at the time.
It's me, Sondan.
God bless Art Carney and his character of Sondan, where Sondan brings gifts to the family, hands Itchy a mind evaporator, which tells you everything you need to know about what they thought VR would be for people.
Now then, Itchy, I thought you might like this. It's one of those, it's a real, it's kind of hard to explain. It's a, wow. You know what I mean?
When you put this helmet on, it attached to a port that had been put in under your skin in your brain, and it would realize your fantasies. So you could sit at home in your chair and your fantasies would play out in front of you.
Happy Life Day. I do mean Happy Life Day.
So we were going to see all the Wookiees' dreams. So Itchy, the silverback Wookiee, had a fantasy. It was supposed to be about Cher, but Cher suddenly couldn't do it, and so Diane Carroll stepped in, and Diane fit into the Bob Mackie costume.
I exist for you. I am in your mind as you create me. Oh, yes. I can feel my creation. I'm getting your message. Are you getting mine?
In what world, planet, galaxy, in any time, has anybody ever wanted their grandpa to enjoy porn in the middle of the living room? That's the least believable thing in a holiday special.
Oh, we are excited, aren't we? Well, just relax. Just relax. Yeah. A little more.
It's him watching humans or aliens that are not Wookiees.
And we had to be careful, I remember this, not to make it too racy for the grandfather with Diane.
You know, I didn't have approval of anything, but that just seemed wrong.
But I didn't see that when I was a kid. All I saw was, why isn't Han Solo on the screen? Why can't we see the real Chewie? Chewie's family sucks.
We can have a good time, can't we?
Oh. And it's cringeworthy because as he sits there and rewinds and replays and rewinds and replays,
I find you adorable. I find you adorable. I find you adorable.
and then goes into a song that Itchy enjoys thoroughly.
This was not made for children. Whoever the creative team was in charge of the Star Wars Holiday Special has zero time for children's entertainment. They're like, I saw that Star Wars movie, and there wasn't enough VR Wookiee porn for me.
Where's Chewbacca? When you were on the Wookiee home planet, how did you even understand what they were saying?
I don't remember ever being on a Wookiee home planet.
Actually, Luke was on the Wookiee home planet Kashyyyk in the holiday special when he helped Chewie get home to his wife.
Chewie had a wife?
Her name's Mala.
Come on, Mala, let's see a little smile.
Come on.
Mark Hamill's makeup in the holiday special rivals Huey Lewis's makeup in the Do You Believe in Love video.
We always thought it was because Mark Hamill was covering up a scar. Like the plastic surgery didn't heal. And that's why they added that Wampa capture scene, because they needed to show why Luke Skywalker had a scar on his face. Now, decades pass, we find out that that's not true at all.
But that really wasn't the main emphasis of why we wrote the monster in the beginning. It was just we needed something to kind of keep the film suspenseful at the beginning while the Empire's finding them.
But the truth is, it's just bad makeup.
These are Tony producers making this special. They are used to caking on the makeup for musicals, for stage performances. Also, you have to remember the degradation of each copy of the holiday special. It gets worse and worse and worse, which means the coloring is not going to be corrected.
Over the period of years, it's built up into having my face reconstructed with plastic surgery.
George told us that he had 10 stories that he had come up with, and he was planning on making 6 movies. And he had 4 other stories that he was putting in different places. And one of them was Boba Fett, but he hadn't quite figured out what Boba Fett's story was going to be. So he took his pilot version of it and made it an animated thing and was going to insert it into this special.
They were doing this holiday special, and there wasn't much our involvement, but I came up with the idea, why don't we take the Boba Fett character and put him in that, make a little movie out of it.
I am Boba Fett. Follow me, friend.
After Return of the Jedi, all the Tim Zahn novels, all Dark Horse comics, like all of this content came out about how awesome Boba Fett was, but it all starts with that animation in the holiday special.
The animated bit, which I think was done by Nelvana, which is a Canadian company that eventually did the Droids and Ewoks TV series.
George had seen a special that we did called Cosmic Christmas and really liked it. And so when he was working with David Akomba, who is a mutual friend, David had suggested that we might be good for the Star Wars special. That was how the relationship all started.
So the cartoon that's contained within the holiday special is this kind of short 10 or 11 minute cartoon subtitled The Faithful Wookiee. And it's the story about how the rebels are looking for Han Solo and Chewbacca, who have disappeared. They find them and they've been affected by this sleeping virus that only affects humans. Then as soon as they discover it, Luke gets infected, and then it's up to Chewbacca and the droids to try and rescue them.
And it was written by George. And I loved the roughness of Star Wars. I loved the fact that everything was beaten up and lived in. We wanted to get that kind of real-world quality into the animation too, and not make it too pristine. It was a little bit loosely based on Mobius.
George wanted the style of Mobius, who's a famous science fiction illustrator. And so that was the inspiration for the style of the characters.
That style of animation, that like nearly rotoscope, everything that was vogue in animation in that era, it was that applied to Star Wars.
But it was crazy. Like there's nothing like it. That animated sequence, to me, to this day, even if, you know, I know what the holiday special is. I know it's crazy and kind of a mess. But I still point to that animated bit and go, this is crazy. Like, this is just vibrant.
But I love the introduction of Boba Fett and that rifle that he had. Yeah. That animated piece still holds up. It's pretty cool. It is. And I draw inspiration from that.
Jon Favreau has declared himself a fan of the Star Wars Holiday Special, and he made a concerted effort to put lots of little Easter eggs and little references to the Holiday Special throughout The Mandalorian.
Because we all ordered the Boba Fett figure by sending in our proofs of purchase from the back of the package, and we got this figure before he ever appeared on screen. You could get Boba Fett in the mail before the movie came out.
So at the time, the action figure Boba Fett was supposed to have a little rocket that fired out of the jetpack. But there were a lot of safety issues at the time with a lot of toys that came out then that had that rocket firing feature. And so they never made it that way.
His toy's so badass, it might kill me. They had to glue the rocket in. And so a generation of kids were like, whoa, who is this guy?
And the only time we'd seen him was in the Holiday Special, which you know well because you put the gun in.
So the forked rifle that the Mandalorian carries is a direct reference to the Holiday Special because Boba Fett does not have that weapon when he appears in The Empire Strikes Back. So it's not in any of the movies, it's only in the Star Wars Holiday Special.
I remember you were all proud when George came to set.
Did you see the gun we have? Yeah. Do you know that was a homage to, that's canon, right? Because you wrote it. Not really.
You said, hey, we put that gun in from the Holiday Special. And he goes, I had nothing to do with it.
One thing people love to talk about in terms of Chewbacca's role and how important he was at the end of Star Wars and how important he may have even been seen by the filmmakers at the end of Star Wars is that you give Han Solo a medal and you give Luke Skywalker a medal, but Chewbacca only gets a chance to stand up on the platform and roar at the end of Star Wars.
There was a question, why didn't Chewbacca get a medal at the end of Star Wars? And George's answer to that was, Wookiees he didn't want a medal, but his reward was that Han would take him back to his home planet for Life Day celebration.
So on the very last day of shooting, from day one when I arrived at Warner Brothers, I was curious how we're going to approach shooting the finale, which has not only the original cast from Star Wars 1, the movie, but also about 100 extras.
They saved all this money by not having to suit them by just dressing them in these robes, these honorary Life Day robes.
And they're all parading through while Carrie sings her song.
And that song that I sing. We celebrate a day of peace, a day of harmony.
She wasn't a great singer, but the song was apparently the deciding factor in getting her onto the show.
Just the set itself looked so fake, Film is very forgiving, especially if it's lit properly, but this just looked so cheesy.
I called my art director in. What's the set for the big finale? And he looked at me straight in the eye and he said, Steve, I hate to break it to you, but we're out of money. We have no set for the finale. I want you to go into Hollywood, go to every candle store you can find and buy every candle they have in their shop. So the night before we actually shot the finale, we placed fat candles, thin candles, tall candles, short candles, all over the floor of the stage. And we spent the morning of the actual shoot lighting all of these candles.
The end of this movie is basically like the Heaven's Gate cult occurs to the Wookiee family. Like they all, right? Like they start singing a song, they hold up their light orbs, and clearly they die and ascend to a new realm where they enter the tail of the Hale-Bopp comet. I think that's what's happening.
The line producers of the Star Wars Holiday Special were Ken and Mitzi Welch. They admittedly came to me and said, hey, we've never produced anything like this.
Mickey was the point person between Lucasfilm and CBS and the production company Smith Hemian that was actually making the special.
We couldn't, you know, tell them what to do. I mean, that was their project, their show, and they didn't, it was like out of control.
I told Gary if I came in to direct and help put the fire out, the one thing I would not be available was I had a show to go to I was already committed to. I would not be able to participate in 1 day or 1 second of editing.
But we weren't in, you have to understand, we weren't in the loop at that point. I mean, at that point, it was Ken and Mitzi Welch's show.
Ken and Mitzi were variety show producers, but they didn't know anything about science fiction, and they didn't know how to edit.
I had never edited anything in my life. You know, I write. I'll never forget this. I saw all of those tapes, and I thought, what am I going to do? And I do remember I burst into tears.
I have never, ever not edited any of my shows other than the Star Wars Holiday Special. And to this day, I regret it. I'm sorry I wasn't there because I knew it would fall on Mitzi and Ken, and I knew they had zero experience.
They were there to get the show done. It would never have gotten done otherwise.
But we were in contact with George Lucas. He knew what he wanted in terms of the look and everything.
Yeah, Mickey Herman.
She was our liaison with
right.
George. She was there all the time, every day, and there in editing too.
And in editing, yeah.
You know, they just left it up to the variety show producers. And, you know, they regretted it.
On Friday night, blast off to a galaxy far, far away. It's the Star Wars Holiday Special.
You're on.
So we would throw a Thanksgiving for the Lost Boys, for all the people who couldn't go home. So that was the night before. So the next night, we all went back and had leftovers and watched the Star Wars special, which was on Friday night of that weekend.
This is the days before the VCR, so we couldn't tape it. If you did not see it when it aired, that was it.
So I had a party at my house that night for when the show was aired. It was catered and it had all of my friends, and there were people with trays.
I wanted to see this more than I wanted to live. You know, I was a young Catholic kid, and I was always afraid God was going to kill me and stuff. And I was like, oh, Lord, please don't kill me until I see the Star Wars Christmas special.
And after the first commercial, I turned it off and I said, okay, everybody, let's eat. You know, I had no idea what it had become.
And it was great. I mean, they loved B, and they loved Harvey, and they loved all of that. They loved all the crap, of course, all the camp stuff they loved. But what wasn't camp in that show?
It just seemed so weird, even at the time. And when it came out, it was like, oh my God, this is what they did for the holiday special?
They made the mistake of farming it out, I think was the problem. They farmed it out to people that were used to doing Perry Como and Bob Hope specials, and it shows.
I noticed that a lot of people who write me and make comments about the Star Wars Holiday Special say I was 5 years old when I watched it, I was 10 years old when I watched it. They have a whole different perspective of it because they usually add, and I loved it.
From what I remember as a kid, the Star Wars Holiday Special was tremendous. I was super excited. I was over anxious simply because something from the Star Wars world was going to be on television.
We're starving as fans for anything Star Wars.
Other than the movie, that's the only other thing that I saw that had Harrison Ford in it or on it at all.
I'll take anything. I don't care if they're going to juggle, sing, dance.
And all the kids talked about it at school the next day and so forth, and then everybody promptly forgot about it after that.
A sinking feeling came in where I was like, oh, this isn't going to be as good as I'd hoped, is it?
In a weird way, it was a prep for what I would experience decades later with the prequels, where I sat down, could not have been more excited, could not have been more jazzed. And then it took time as I was watching it to realize, like, something's wrong.
I think what's probably like the plague in the Middle Ages, after everybody died, they decided to change the subject. So I don't remember people talking about it much.
It's like one of those Mandela effect things where for a long time, a bunch of people didn't even know the Star Wars Christmas special existed.
As the internet grew, it became this sort of like talking point. Are you a Star Wars fan? Yeah. Do you know about the holiday special? Now I know you're a Star Wars fan. But this really showed a different level of commitment. Like, most casual Star Wars fans don't know about the holiday special.
And so all of a sudden it kind of surfaced, and that was when he tried to really bury it.
You tell somebody you can't have something, they want it even more. So I thought the Star Wars Holiday Special on a VHS tape, 6th generation copy, that would have been valuable currency to a prototypical nerd Star Wars fan.
Years later, when I first interviewed George Lucas, and we were finished the main part of the interview, and I said, I've got another question for you. What about the holiday special? And he said, oh, that damn thing. He said, if I could personally go out and find all of the bootleg VHS tapes, I would smash them all. And I told that anecdote at a convention in Australia. That sort of went around the world. George Lucas wishes there were never a holiday special and he would smash all the tapes. I take some pride in having started that anecdote, and I got it right from the horse's mouth.
In a way, the fact that Lucas has spent so much time denying it makes it more popular for some people, because it seems like it's something they shouldn't see or can't see.
George didn't say anything during production because, again, he had moved away to work on other things.
I blame, not blame, is the wrong word. Lucas, when Lucas walked away, he said, do whatever you want. And then he got upset because we did whatever we wanted.
He knew it wasn't going to be wonderful. And really, I don't think he saw it till about the same time we all did. And he immediately hated it.
Because I'm bold with George when we're having conversations. And I asked him, I was like, oh man, how did you feel when you saw the first cut? And he was like, well, I did ask if there was a way that we couldn't air it. Did it have to air? But it was a lot of money, and it had to air.
To this day, I've never met George Lucas. All I heard was he tried to buy the negatives and never, ever showed us again after it aired.
I don't blame anybody, but he's the only person who really could have controlled it.
You know, all the Star Wars actors were in this thing, playing the roles that they made famous a year earlier. And now the guy who created those roles for them, George Lucas, says, I'm not really associated with this.
What do you think of Lucas taking his name off the special?
I have my name on all the good things I've done and all the bad things I've done. But maybe if I could have taken my name off of the bad things, I would have.
You know, George, to be fair, hasn't been out there going like, I hate the Christmas special. You know, it's not like he's lamenting it loudly, but he's made it clear over the years that he ain't into this.
I think at the time when the holiday special was broadcast, it was not considered to be a big failure or giant anomaly that it is considered to be today. I don't know for sure, but I certainly didn't hear from anybody that there was any fallout from the show, that anybody was fired. I think life just went on at Lucasfilm.
The whole purpose of this show was to sell toys to kids.
There were also going to be action figures of the Wookiee family.
We only know of one set of the prototype Wookiee action figures that Kenner was maybe going to make, but there were the 4 action figures: Itchy, Chewbacca, Malotobuk, and Lumpy. So clearly somebody thought that there was money to be made in doing merchandise based on the Star Wars Holiday Special, but that never happened.
When something is that huge, people can't control as hard as they do the way it's going to be marketed.
An advertising series in Japan for Panasonic between 1989 and 1993, and they used George Lucas and all of the characters in Star Wars. I saw the contract. There was a series of penalties if any of these commercials showed in the U.S.
And in terms of, you know, embarrassment to the franchise, I remember a commercial where Darth Vader was fighting with a lightsaber and then it shorted out and he opened up the hilt and the batteries were dead. Energizer Bunny goes symboling through the frame, and I was like, there goes the dignity of the great Sith Lord.
You can see the awful George Lucas' Super Live Adventure in 7 parts from Japan from 1993 on the internet.
And it's like a stage show, and it covered not only like Star Wars and Indiana Jones. I mean, I think it was covering Tucker, and it's covering everything that Lucas has done.
That was all singing, all dancing stormtroopers. I mean, you know, give me a break.
It's just, the machine is just gonna take over, and it's like, why not make a holiday special?
Yeah, the holiday special was quite a thing. I'm a little bit proud of it. But why not? Yeah.
And at that time, I have a feeling that George just wasn't, either he was too busy, or he didn't fully understand the changes that were happening, or maybe just figured, this is a variety show, who cares, you know?
A lot of people came into watching it thinking, oh, we're going to get a TV sequel to Star Wars. It's going to be a science fiction adventure show and stuff like that. And that's never what it was. It was a variety show.
It's easy to poke fun at stuff after the fact and question how it happened and sort of make fun of it. It's cliche at this point to crap on the Star Wars Holiday Special. It really is. Everybody, without even having sat through the entire thing, just instantly, it's a punchline.
The legacy of the Star Wars Holiday Special is in how it impacted all of us fans. And as people continue to create for Star Wars, they'll keep on adding these Easter eggs in. You'll keep on seeing things in the background, these callbacks, these little things that tip the hat to you, the viewer, that this is made by someone who truly loves Star Wars.
Together we will rule the galaxy.
Cut! I quit. This is the holiday special all over again. The Glee Holiday Spectacular!
Our first ever live-action holiday special.
What is it, Star Wars Christmas?
No, don't be ridiculous. That's Wookiee Life Day.
I've got you now. Sorry.
Yeah, I was hoping to be free for Life Day.
I love these connective tissues. I love the fact that, you know, we've taken Life Day and we said, no, November 17th, the day the special was released, is now Life Day. So on Earth, in the Disney parks, in the world, we celebrate it.
As much as Lucasfilm might not want to acknowledge its existence, we've seen it infiltrate Disney Plus. We've seen merchandise all over the theme parks themed around Life Day. No one's talking about the holiday special directly, but we are, as a fandom, embracing Life Day.
Maybe this could mean down the road at some point they might release the entire holiday special. Who knows?
Yeah, where is it coming? Repeat what the TV movie or Yeah. I believe the movie was released on videotape.
I think he should embrace it. I mean, like, it's not his fault. He didn't do it, I don't think.
And am I going to stand on a soapbox and proclaim that this is canon? No, but it's really interesting and it's really fun.
The Star Wars special is kind of an anomaly for fans because it was kind of the one big thing that Lucasfilm did before it got its act together and got its system together to make sure that things like this never happened again.
It's just a curiosity. I mean, the Star Wars universe is so different now.
As much as I, as a fan, would love to have a nice, pristine copy of the Star Wars Holiday Special, I understand why you probably wouldn't want to put that out in the world.
You know, it may not be like our favorite part of the Star Wars mythos, but it has its place. It's an important part of Star Wars history.
Star Wars fans are collectors, right? So it does have built into it, more than any film or TV show made for Star Wars, this like exclusive collectability element of it.
I don't think Disney Plus should put it out. The part of the thing that makes it so wonderful is that it still has that bootleg feel to it.
I think it's actually surprising that Lucasfilm and Disney haven't released holiday special in some format. Why let the bootlegs run the show? They should actually have an official release of it.
Let the audience discover it. And when they discover it, it means more.
Here's the one way they should release it. They should let George Lucas have it and then put all the crazy, just let him George Lucas the hell out of it.
I would love to do someday, maybe on Disney Plus, we'll do a holiday special too.
Do you think we'll ever see another Star Wars holiday special?
Not if I have anything to say about it.
Maybe there's a version that none of us can imagine that would be genius.
Yeah.
Would that be wonderful?
Oh, that'd be insane.
I got to pitch that to them. We'll see.
Yes. All
If
right.
you want to see a holiday special, let Disney Plus know.
Wow, you heard it here first.
I also believe that George Lucas is, at his heart, an experimental filmmaker. And he wants to make things that are weird and different. And the holiday special is that.
You know, the greatest crime of the Star Wars Christmas and/or holiday special is that it ain't Star Wars. But to be fair, what is?
At this point, George Lucas is probably like, you know what? It's been out there, whatever. I've moved on. It's a thing that happened. But if Star Wars Holiday Special kind of sneaks in there, I don't think he cares anymore. Though I don't think he'd want another one.
George once asked us, please never mention it again. And I said, George, we should own that because it shows that everybody's fallible. Everybody makes mistakes.
When you work with any project, you fall in love. What else are you going to do? I have worked on shows that were really popular and shows that were horrible. And I didn't work any more or less hard on any of them.
Every filmmaker has to grapple with, not everything is going to be a hit.
There's no being an artist without failure. There's no being an artist without failure.
Time has a real amazing way of allowing you to embrace the past.
It's a very difficult place to be an artist on the public stage making movies because everybody is watching you and many people are rooting for you to fail.
All my life, since the Donnie Marie Show was created, I wanted nothing to do with it.
If you look at other franchises, they would die to have like the fan base of Star Wars. It's crazy. Like Star Trek would love to have what Star Wars has. They don't have anything like it. Nobody does.
When you have a bunch of people that love something and take it, you know, into their hearts, they claim it. And when these things don't behave the way we want them to, well, it seems like we've become a culture that doesn't know how to handle that.
Watch the good stuff and either ignore the bad stuff or delight in the bad stuff ironically.
I have learned to embrace it. I've learned to say, you know, I'm not embarrassed about it as much. You know, I did the best I could at the time. That's what was popular. That's what was that people were buying and watching, and it was appropriate for the day.
I think failure defines people sometimes more than success. I think failure is one of the great motivators.
The Star Wars Holiday Special led to stuff like Andor. I mean, that all of that failure is part of that process.
Some way, somewhere, somehow, somebody's going to make fun of you. Don't let it bother you. Move ahead. Be an artist.
Sometimes the magic happens, and sometimes it's the Star Wars Holiday Special.
There was a news splash in between the commercials, and the bootleg had all the commercials from 1978. And that was actually, eventually that became part of the charm. They've become part of this movie. And the anchor is the funniest part because he's just there and he's like, fighting the Frizzies, you know, tonight at 11.
Fighting the Frizzies at 11.
I've been surreptitiously made a cult figure, whether I wanted to or not.
And then they parodied that on South Park.
And now, Fighting the Frizzies.
Why are they doing this? Why the parody? No, but nobody remembers the serious things and the profound things that I did in my career, but they all remember Fighting the Frizzies at 11.